is Carl? I bet Carl's thinking it's 5 o'clock. Or it might be stuck in traffic.
My kids were, I was going to try to pick them up at the bus stop. Usually I pick them up at 4. By 4:12, they were still not, they were still on the RAV. So I was like, I gotta go. Can't.
Coming from school.
I'm just going to go to Courtland B for executive session since you got to come right there.
We're not going to do it.
Not going to.
What time? We're at time.
We are. Are y'all ready? Good evening. It's my pleasure to convene the special town council meeting for this Tuesday, December the 10th. Our agenda is published before you, and it's good to see everybody here. We have some things to do this evening, and then when we get to public comment, I have some explanation to do about how things will be run. The first item is executive session, but I understand we have a motion.
Yes, unless I have objection from other council members, I would like to move that we reappoint Judge Thurmond and Judge Richter to be our municipal judges.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and just to be clear, that comes from the committee, from the police.
Yes, so we
Judicial-
had the Police, Judicial, and Legal Committee where we conducted interviews.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. The judges are reappointed. So item 3, there is no executive session. Item 4, public comment. Let me read this. Due to limitations, public comment at the special council meeting will be limited to 30 minutes. However, members of the public are welcome to speak at the regular town council meeting, which starts at 6, and there's another public comment section in that meeting. By rule, because I've been asked before, by rule, both for council and for the public, we do not yield time. Each person gets 2 minutes and 30 seconds by ordinance, and our administrator is walking away. He will let you know when your 2 minutes and 30 seconds are up. And if I've been asked by council members to say this, if you are here to comment about the tourism development fee and the rollout of that, I made a public press conference yesterday. I take full responsibility. That is off the table. I ask for your forbearance and your grace due to the circumstances of my life that I've been dealing with. And if you want a head on a platter, you can have mine, but please do not blame council members for that. I take full responsibility as the leader of this town. So we'll go to public comment, and everyone has 2 minutes and 30 seconds, please. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have a sheet.
Okay.
It is, as they are here, you can come up in order.
If you're here to speak in public comment, please come forward, name and address, 2.5 minutes, please. One at a time.
Hi, James McKee, 1247 Palmetto Peninsula Drive. My wife and I moved here 8 years ago, primarily for the ocean that's here and our natural resources in the town. And I've been pleased to see the town create the Green Commission. You've got the new, stronger tree protection policy that's going in with the zoning ordinances. I think those things are great because it's protecting the natural resources environment that we value highly, having moved here. And what I'd like to do is you're looking through all of the things that are going on for Patriots Point, that you consider an environment first. Look at that. So as you're considering the development in these items, we're frequent users of Patriots Point. We ride our bicycles out there. We've gone around there by kayak. We've got a great, beautiful environment there. that I think we need to enhance, that is, do more of it, and make sure that public access is a critical part of the plan. As I've looked at the sort of new plan for the annex, it seems to push the buildings forward and push the people back towards the center. Not something really encouraging as we kind of look at the environmental conservationist things in there. So I just encourage you to take the leadership in environment for that. Thank you.
Next, please.
Noah Moore, 1309 Founders Way. Been a resident of Mount Pleasant for close to 30 years. I'm a local runner. I use that property out at Patriots Point quite a bit, including that trail. I was here for the planning meeting that happened recently and watched DNR try to explain what the easement covered in that area and how they were cut off every 2.5 minutes. Completely disrespectful to the director of DNR, who took time to be here to explain that to the planning committee. I would like you to just keep in mind that there is an easement, environmental easement by DNR that was fought for by a lot of us over the years to keep that trail. That is a great trail back there. I know that there are council members here that appreciate that and have used it. It is in dire disrepair. I run on that a lot. A lot of our friends do. But I will tell you that it is almost looks like it was meant to be left that way, so it would be an afterthought. That trail is referred to as Peyton's Trail because of my late son. We use it a lot. I would ask you to keep that place in mind. Just keep our green space. That is a tiny sliver. But when this new proposal was put in place, if you look at it, there is a road that is, it is almost in, it is outlined on top of that trail to put a road on it. Think about those things. Council members, I appreciate all your work. I appreciate you, Will, for, Mr. Haney, for your comments and everything that you're going through. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, my name is Tori Sanders. I'm here on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. As we understand, the plan includes an aggregate of 9 respective parcels totaling approximately 74 acres, and the proposed amendment seeks to establish development standards and permitted uses for the project area to provide a mix of uses. The Coastal Conservation League has serious concerns with the proposed amendment. We acknowledge no vote will be taken tonight, and we further urge you to table future votes until Patriots Point Development Authority will meaningfully engage with SCDNR and resolve all concerns regarding the proposed uses in the on-site conservation easement. The development standards and permitted uses directly violate the terms of that conservation easement held by DNR. And as we understand, the conservation easement is on roughly 20 acres and expressly prohibits the execution of any permanent improvements except such minimal improvements necessary for the security, safety, or convenience of the public, or to carry out such uses of the easement property. We firmly believe that the proposed permanent structures and necessary infrastructure planned on the conservation easement property, which include the conference center and a 1,000 space parking garage, do not meet the criteria of minimum improvement. Conservation easements are an essential tool in ensuring the integrity of our state's natural resources, from our water quality to wildlife, to make sure these are sustained for future generations. They're also essential for our state's resilience through protecting essential habitats and migration areas. The specific site provides food, cover, and resting areas for migrating songbirds and birds of prey. As many as 250 species are known to use this area, including the Connecticut warbler and peregrine falcon. Acknowledging the presence of this conservation easement is essential to ensure the integrity of conservation easements as a tool in protecting the natural areas that fuel our economy and tourism industry as a whole. Thank you so much for your consideration in these comments, and please do not hesitate to reach out if we can provide any additional information, clarification, or resources as you consider this important project. Thank you.
Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Greg Sebecki, and I live at 1469 Gunnison Street in Upper Mount Pleasant. My message is to Mayor Haney. Your attempt to force a tax without going through the normal process and review by committee and your own town council was inexcusable and unethical. You tried to fool not only the residents of Mount Pleasant, but your own town council. Requiring a vote on this just an hour after you providing them with information is insulting. You ran your campaign with a platform of controlling growth, but we all see that has not happened. There's 500,000 square foot warehouses going up on Faison. You bought a piece of property from Chris Marino at a discount because you were going to put amenities for the people in Upper Mount Pleasant, and you went ahead and sold that land for a $3 million profit. Where's that money going? If you were a CEO of a public company and you pulled these shenanigans without board approval, you would be fired. You should do the right thing and resign effective immediately. If you don't, the voters of Mount Pleasant will make sure you will be gone in November. Thank you.
Next, please. No outburst. No outburst, pro or con. That has been the rule forever in these chambers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mac Barnhart, 18 Grace Lane. Mayor Haney, I want to thank you for your announcement yesterday and your apology. It takes a big man to stand up and say he was wrong.
And I'm sorry, did we get your address?
18 Grace Lane.
Thank you.
I do question, however, how the fact that someone thought it was a good idea to have a new tax, but be that as it may, that's off the table now. So thank you for that. That being said, I am opposed to the Patriots Point development for two reasons. We need more green space, just following up on the previous comments by these fine citizens, and also the fact that with all this development around here, I'm not against development, but it needs to be in a common sense way. And also, looking at the numbers on your website for this project, a lot of those service workers that would come in for this new developments, I think the annual salary was stated somewhere around $70,000-$80,000 a year. And most people with that salary cannot afford to live in Mount Pleasant. We need to focus, I would ask you, please, to focus on how we can better enable service workers to be able to afford to live in Mount Pleasant to serve these developments. My wife and I most recently empty nesters. We have 3 young adults. I would love for them to move back here to Mount Pleasant, be close to us. But right now, as it stands with their young careers, they cannot afford to live here. They cannot afford to buy a house. So I would ask that you, please, Mr. Mayor, Town Administrator, and the council, to please focus on less development, more green space. Please focus on basic infrastructure, traffic improvements, first responders, and also being able to enable our young adults to find a way to afford to live in this fine town. Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi, my name is David Quick. I live at 1502 Village Square. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on Patriots Point. As clearly stated by Mayor Haney on Monday, the tourism development sales tax is off the table. What is not clear to me is the status of the conservation easement in the trail at Patriots Point, which I like to think of as an opportunity for a boulevard to harbor trail. I support not only the strict preservation of the current conservation easement, but efforts to extend its potential ecological benefits to the golf course and throughout Patriots Point. Currently, as I understand it, the trailhead is not part of the easement, and I think that should be part of the easement. So I like to think of it as the easement and the trail is yet a remnant of a forest that used to be at Patriots Point. This forest was a critical stopover for migratory birds as well as habitat for resident birds. A town sign on the trail itself says just that. In the 1990s, the easement and the trail was a compromise for the construction of the sports complex for College of Charleston and the town of Mount Pleasant, and more recently, the Charleston Battery. there should be no more chipping away of the last remaining strip of nature at Patriots Point. That said, the development around the trail has left what remained more vulnerable to high winds over the last 25 years. As a result, some of the existing trees have come down as a result of the higher winds. A canopy that used to shade the trail has been degraded and allowed invasive species, primarily Chinese privet, to fill the gaps and choke out native vegetation. Other than the initial investment in the trail, I contend that it is the least maintained of the town recreation properties. This is an opportunity for the town and the community to get involved in a restoration project by removing non-native plants and restoring native trees through tree planting days and work days. As chairman of the Mount Pleasant Green Commission, we recently initiated a pilot tree canopy restoration project where we engage citizens to find out where they would like to see trees planted. The Patriots Point Trail was one of those locations, but staff decided to remove it from this year's.
I have to call time. We're on the 30-minute limit.
I'll finish at the 6 o'clock. Thank you, guys.
I have to be very strict about that. We have a limited time this evening. By the way, it will end at 5:17. It started at 4:47. Next, please. Next for public comment. Yes.
Hi there. My name is Michelle Stress, and I live at 545 Veranda View. I don't have anything formally to present, just because it's all been a little bit confusing. It's just been confusing. But I will say that two things. I want to just echo some of the comments that David Quick made. I think that the migratory birds, the easements, that is incredibly important, and that this is an opportunity for us to really shine in Mount Pleasant. This will speak volumes what we decide to do here. And then secondly, as I drove, so I take the bus from MUSC to Walmart, and where I park my car, and what would normally take, 10 minutes, it took me an hour and 10 minutes on the express bus. And so I know that this Patriots Point, we want this to be a beautiful Mecca for people to come to, but my God, we don't need any more traffic. I mean, the traffic is already out of control. That's really it. I don't know if we need any more. We don't need more of more. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, please, for public comment. Name and address, 2.5 minutes.
Kevin Canane, River Vista Way. I just want to know how this came about. I follow the agendas. There's no committee meeting. Just appears the Monday after Thanksgiving. That was a good zing to the people who have family out of town, which is probably 70% of the residents nowadays. Maybe they were out of town for Thanksgiving and they missed this secret vote on Monday morning. Okay, it's public, but really bad optics on that. It should not have happened the Monday after Thanksgiving. Even people that have relatives in the state sometimes will come back Monday because of the traffic of late. Secondly, if there's any conflicts on the property, and by that I mean if you live on the property, if your direct family lives on Patriots Point, if you have a family member with contracts on Patriots Point, that should be known to the public. May not be illegal for you to participate, but it's shady. So if there's stuff going on of a nature where it's going to make somebody like me say, what's going on there? Just identify it and let the public decide whether you're doing something shady or not. Mr. Mayor, you have a long history of being a liar. I mean, you've been called a serial fabricator on social media by somebody I don't even know. And I'm not the one spreading this stuff. It's the way you act. The Medal of Honor Museum was chased out of town. You and another council member at the time had a big part in that. Now you want to ride in and try and solve the problem that you created. That's kind of a swamp tactic. I think the rest of council should see that this is not about let Mr. Haney make up an involvement and solve the Medal of Honor problem. It's a great idea. I supported it then. I supported the new one. It's just, how much do we have to pay as citizens for something that looks like it just ain't going to happen? the group that made a $700 million museum up at the World Trade Center was here. They were willing to build a successful, and they had a track record. And they were smeared by Mr. Haney. And he sent other people to smear them as well. That was the March 31st, 2019 Post and Courier expose. If anyone's interested in reading it, it was disgraceful. And the problem is now we have a new proposal that's basically designed to save face for something that happened 5 years ago. How about we move past it, recognize what happened, read the article, read that article in the Post and Courier. Thank you.
Next comment, please, for public comment. 2.5 minutes. Name and address, please. All right. If there's no one else, public comment will be closed.
Oh, one more.
Oh, come on up.
I'm David Halsey, 917 12 Pond Road. Just occurred to me when I was reading over all these different things that I don't play golf, and I know a lot of people who don't. There are those who do. It seems like things like workforce housing and all the other varieties of accessible housing should be a focus, and public transportation should be a focus. When I was young in Charleston wasn't very big, and there was public transportation. They had a bus line. Mount Pleasant's bigger than Charleston was then, so where's Mount Pleasant's bus line? We don't need to be part of some larger metropolitan public transit. We could have our own little public transit. And I really do think that our commitment to workforce housing and to integrating the people who work here into the life structure, or maintaining their ability to be in the life structure, is of huge importance. It's way more important than the idea of the occasional conference in a redundant center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir. Name and address, please. 2.5 minutes.
My name is Christy Kanchuk, 1764 Agate Bay Drive. I just want to thank everyone for calling this meeting on this very important topic. As most of you can tell by my accent, I'm not originally from the South. I was born and raised in Long Island, New York. I was a firefighter for the FDNY for 20 plus years. I have lived in a place with corruption and local level taxation with no boundaries. My family and I fled that lifestyle. So why am I here this evening? Because I will not sit back and let this town become the same place I just left. While I appreciate the town council members who spoke out about this proposal and the mayor who finally made the smart decision to listen to the voters, it cannot be stressed enough that this debacle cannot happen again. Accountability and transparency are pillars of our government and our elected leaders. When those were eroded, so did the trust of the people. Many folks in Upper Mount Pleasant feel that many decisions made by town council primarily benefit Lower Mount Pleasant. The latest development of truck distribution centers on Faison Road, as well as this beautiful car dealership we have right smack in the middle of Carolina Park, is not sitting well with the folks there. Also, there are 38 plus acres sold to the same company, and no one has any idea of what could possibly be developed. The number one priority of town council should always be focused on the constituents and their best interest, not developers and outside groups. Bypassing the proper procedures and protocols, in my opinion, is inexcusable. Calling the meeting a day before Thanksgiving, minimal time for town council members to prepare, not taking the proposal to the magnitude to planning committees, pushing a proposal with easement issues, not requiring developers to have financial responsibilities, making residents in Mount Pleasant lose their trust in the leaders. Upper Mount Pleasant is a large tax base for this town, and more importantly, we are a huge voting block, which I know most of you folks know. Many of us are new to this area. We contributed significantly to this town, and we refuse to allow Mount Pleasant to turn into the corrupt place that we all left. The voters are watching very closely, and I want to repeat that. We are watching very closely. The demand accountability and transparency, not have any backdoor deals, and I wish you folks really would have the people that live in this town at your best interest in mind. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Please come forward, name and address. 2.5 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Doug Morton. I'm 2004 Country Manor Drive. I set up a 2.5 minute talk several days ago prior to the mayor apologizing and pulling back the sales tax. But I decided I really wanted to bring forward some of the points that I still think are salient here. The last general election, sales tax was defeated 60-40. That should have been the key right there, that this was not a good idea to put forward. Optics aside, it was a really bad idea. And I appreciate the personal issues that you're going through. I've been doing the same thing with 4 parents, both of my spouse and mine, with memory care issues. But this issue has been going on for 6 years, I believe. I believe the Patriots Point Development Authority was focusing on this in 2018, 2019. So I can't use the last 2 months as you being unprepared for this. Being first in the state with the highest sales tax rate should embarrass you, not make promotional material. After the Shem Creek parking deck fiasco, that should give you pause to think about parking at $60,000 a space, which is what this plan was calling for. While I appreciate what you're doing long-term with Patriots Point, I believe that this has become an ego-stroking pet project that doesn't make the town necessarily better. It makes it more expensive and more congested. Transparency matters. Oddly, most Pleasant residents had no idea that this proposed reading was going to occur on Tuesday, December 2nd. Yet every one of the stakeholders that benefited from this proposal had glowing public comments on that day. That's bad optics. That is, I'd almost call shady, because we weren't told. There was no public comment that I believe that was out there. I've been a resident for 15 years here. I don't recall any public comment period saying that we're going to spend $200 million on Patriots Point. This is just tone deaf, not just bad optics. You need to open up your ears to your constituents. We may be apathetic because you're usually doing a good job on a day-to-day basis, but this didn't cut it.
Time. Next for public comment, please. Name and address.
I think the expectation was we were going to go till 5:30 with the rest of council. Are we able to extend public comment? Because
no, we noticed the meeting. We had a parliamentary meeting about it today. We said 30 minutes for public and 30 minutes for council, and I'm not going to violate
It
that.
is on the agenda as that, sir.
Okay, but we did start early. Okay. I didn't know if I could make a motion for that.
I wrote down the time that it started and what time that it ends, and we're using some of that now, actually.
Mr. Pagliarini, question: the council discussion was not limited to 30 minutes, just public comment. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go.
Hi, my name is Mike Van Horn. I live on Iron Bridge Drive. I'm here today to express my concerns with regards to the proposed sales tax. Though the mayor has had a sudden epiphany regarding the proposed sales tax increase, how this matter was presented is a complete lack of regards to the residents of Mount Pleasant. As a recent candidate for Charleston County Treasurer, I realized what the position you guys are all in sitting there. I faced criticism myself in my own campaign. Mayor, what concerns me is the fact that you're not living up to your Palmetto principles, the protect, plan, and restore. With multiple closed doors discussions and the lack of transparency to even the other members of council has put the town at risk. We already have ongoing lawsuits in the town. We don't need any more. A special meeting that was called for on December 2nd, 2024, with regards to the ordinance to enact chapter 40.22 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinance listed under taxation. Though council wasn't properly prepared to rule on that first reading, you each voted in favor during the first reading, with the exception of Councilman Icofano, who was absent during that vote. As our leaders in Mount Pleasant, I encourage you to request a deferral if you're not in understanding of everything that you need to know before making that ruling. To paraphrase a football analogy, Mayor, you tried to Baltimore Colts us and move us into a situation without anybody knowing. Though I personally would like to see the mayor's position recalled under South Carolina's Constitution, Article 15, for the lack of public transparency and trust. I strongly believe that the voters of Mount Pleasant will take care of that come time November. There's also 4 other seats that are going to be available between now and then. I myself will be seeking one of those seats, and I encourage each of you to please sit there and be transparent. I'm tired of getting screwed by taxation. We all feel it. We all know what happened with the 526 debacle. We don't need another one. Thank you.
Next for public comment, please, which closes at 5:17, so we have time for one more speaker. Please silence all of your devices, please.
She's walking up, so I can't make a motion to amend.
So this will be, no, to amend the agenda has to occur at the beginning of the meeting.
My name is Haley Holsworth, and I live at 1323 Lake Mallard Boulevard. I am here as a concerned resident to address the serious issues surrounding the recent withdrawn sales tax proposal for the development of Patriots Point. While I appreciate Mayor Haney's acknowledgement of the missteps and his public apology, the rushed timeline, lack of transparency, and failure to follow proper processes are deeply troubling. I'm sure there were many hands in this with the planning department, town administrator, among others, and this shouldn't all be blamed on Will Haney. But why did no one think this was a bad idea? This project proposes significant investment, $186 million funded by taxpayers of Mount Pleasant. To think such a massive endeavor could be rushed through without properly educating or engaging the community is unacceptable. Timing it during the busiest season of the year, when people are focused on the holidays and countless events, only adds to the perception that this was an attempt to avoid scrutiny. Adding to this distrust is the mayor's claim to Post and Courier that the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources was not kept in the dark about this project. This directly contradicts the statement from DNR Director Robert Boyles, who confirmed that they were unaware that part of the development would be built on protected land. Why would Mayor Haney mislead the public about something so easily disproven? Why did he think it was acceptable? This lack of honesty further undermines public confidence in our leadership, and we will remember this for the next election. The big question now is, where will the funding come for this development for the future? Will the burden once again fall on the taxpayers, or will private developers, the ultimate beneficiaries, be required to shoulder their fair share? The community deserves clear answers and a firm commitment to fairness and transparency moving forward. While I'm empathetic to the mayor's personal challenges with his parents, I do not believe this should be used as an excuse for this matter. These were not minor oversights. They were systematic failures in communication and governance. If personal distractions made it impossible to approach this responsibly, it would have been far wiser to delay the proposal entirely until it could be handled with the care and transparency it deserves, rather than shove it through the pipeline as fast as possible. I hope many lessons have been learned from the mistakes made through this process. I especially want to thank Jake, GM, and John for standing up for the citizens of Mount Pleasant and speaking out for what they believed was right.
Time. All right. As we said, 30 minutes. It was limited to 30 minutes. We're at 5:17. It began at 4:47. So public comment is closed. That's not my rule. That was the motion that put this on the agenda. And that is the advice of our parliamentarian. I do have a question now. What council approved in the request to put this on the agenda had 30 minutes for council discussion. We have more than 30 minutes. So as a chair, I just want to make sure I'm in compliance however we do this.
Yes, sir. The agenda specifically does not specify the exact time amount. So
Okay.
it could be
So we can have discussion. But we have to convene our regular monthly meeting at 6 o'clock.
correct, sir. So
Okay.
everyone understands our regular meeting is noticed for 6 o'clock. That is by ordinance as well as by notice, and we cannot violate that. So this meeting will need to end by that time period.
Okay. So this is for discussion only. There are no motions, as it says in the agenda. There will be no votes taken. So since we don't have a motion and everything, what I would like everyone to do, and I have asked the parliamentarian if this is proper, so let each council member speak first. We'll begin with Councilman Ritchie and work this way.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we have extended time, I did the math, and it gives each council member 4 minutes and basically 4 minutes and 40 seconds.
That sounds right.
Right? Okay.
Can we get help with the timer on that? It's hard to chair and time at the same time.
I mean, you don't have to take 4 minutes. I'm just saying.
Up to so you get cut off at 4 minutes and 40 something seconds. So, and we will go in line. We normally don't have a time limit, but we have that for this, and we're being careful by our parliamentary procedures. Do you need a second to set the clock? All right, Councilman Rich.
Well, I appreciate it. I won't need 4 minutes. I appreciate all the comments, the emails, the phone calls received, the concern of our residents and citizens. I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate the mayor putting out the press release he did to address the issue. And I know going forward that this council will work very hard to ensure transparency and community involvement. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Next.
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with Councilmember Ritchie, and I also, agree with us looking at issues and really making sure that the citizens understand exactly what we're doing and when we're doing it. I apologize for anything that I was a part of. I think it's very important that area out there is maintained in a way that we can use them, that our children have better ball fields that are out there and things like that. So anyhow, that's my take on it, and we hopefully will move forward and get through this, and so that everybody will be happy with the outcome. Thank you.
I'd be happy to yield some of my time for the public if they would like it.
We
if that's
don't.
possible.
Sorry,
So
we don't yield.
That's okay. So
that's the rule,
and
sir.
I've got you. I want to thank the citizens for coming out tonight, so I appreciate it. I do think we need accountability and transparency. And although I do thank the mayor for taking full accountability is easy when you don't give us the answers. So I guess what I'm requesting tonight from you is the full accountability of what actually happened. What's the timeline? What made you skip planning commission? Why didn't the planning commission hold a meeting prior to the council? Typically that's how it's handled. Goes to commission, then the committee. So I think although it's very nice to wrap things in a bow to take full accountability, those are words. Action is different. So what I'm asking for tonight from you, and if we want to put a timeline on it, we can. I'm asking for not only full accountability, but full disclosure at the decisions that were made, full disclosure to the timeline, and full disclosure that most likely this was probably available to the public probably around September. I would guess that that staff probably could have come out with this. So I think that that's what the public deserves. Apologies are great, but apologies are meaningless without proactive forward movement and understanding how we're going to get better. So thank you.
Mr. Rambo?
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for their calls, texts, emails. I appreciate everyone's feedback and echo the comments of my fellow council members. With that, Mr. Pagliarini, I think I have a few questions, though. So in our form of government, I just want to make sure that where we're at procedurally with this. Sure. So both the tax and the development or the plan development or whatever zoning issue were both passed at first reading. I appreciate the mayor's statement. I just have a question about, does it not then need to get voted down for a second, or where does it actually stand?
Sure. Yes, sir. Reviewed rules on that issue, and there are two different things. Firstly, the zoning portion of it has to be dealt with by the landowner, and that would be the Patriots Point Development Authority.
Okay.
And at this point, I don't have it guaranteed, but it's my understanding that they will not be moving forward with the zoning portion of.
So they'll need to formally
Sir?
They'll need to formally withdraw their
Yes,
zoning request.
that's correct. I understand that is forthcoming.
And that has not happened quite yet.
I understand it is forthcoming.
Okay.
I just don't have it as I sit here at this moment. It very well could be. But
So that's the action item that then ends
yes.
the process.
As to the other portion, which would be the ordinance related to the TDF, that was brought forward again as part of our overall long-term plan with consultation with council, and it was brought forward by staff. The position is, and this is, I believe, the correct one, that unless it is brought to an agenda by a council member, it will not be automatically placed on another agenda. So all council members certainly have the right to bring it back up, but until and unless that happens, it will not.
Okay. And procedurally moving forward, so I know that an item can get placed on a council agenda. If an item has not gone to committee, it can be placed directly on a council agenda by either 3 council members or the mayor. Moving forward, is there a way to alter that? In that I get the aspect of that, and that 3 council members or the mayor can place something on the agenda, and I'm fine with that for a discussion purpose. But is there a way to alter it in our ordinance so that this was a fully written, packaged ordinance that went straight to council, not a discussion? So I guess my ask would be that the Police, Judicial, and Legal Committee can take a look at that ordinance and revise it to where it does need to go to a committee. I mean, it can go directly to council for a discussion, but then after that, it needs to go to a committee to develop the ordinance in and of itself. I don't know all the technicalities on that, and I don't want to get into it. Just I think that's a good thing for the PLJ committee.
Yes, sir. I have a lot of thoughts, but I understand your question, and we'll bring that up at the next meeting. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Whitley, we'll go down.
You'll close us out.
Yep.
So I was the one who called for this special meeting last Thursday after it became clear that there needed to be an opportunity for public input. It was necessary, sort of ahead of the plan for the second special council meeting that was set for Friday, January 3rd. I'd like to thank Councilman Icofano and Rambo for second and thirding my request for this meeting. So for me, timeline-wise, my knowledge of this project began early in 2024 with a 30-minute meeting, sort of presentation on the concept. And of course, I had questions on oversight, whether it made sense to hand such large amounts of money over to private entities. But I was assured that the long-term benefits to the town were enough to sort of outweigh those concerns. Back in 2019, I actually wrote an op-ed in the Post and Courier about how Mount Pleasant has lived off of growth financially for the last 20 years. And at some point, that growth will end, must come to an end. I think the citizens want it to come to an end. And at some point, we will be in the red financially because we have sustained ourselves off of development. And at that point, it is really up to our citizens which path they want to take. Do we accept more development? Do we accept higher taxes to cover our basic services, or some combination of the two? Those are the choices that are before us, and they're the choices that are still before us long term. With the Patriots Point project, I was told that the tax revenue for this project would keep our town in the black for years and years and years to come. That there would be no new tax increases to property owners in Mount Pleasant once this project was fully brought out. And to me, that seemed like a great benefit to our citizens. But then at first reading, I learned for the first time of DNR's strong objection to this project during public comment. And I have to apologize because even though I asked the question about it during discussion, I should have raised my concern more strongly. I should have asked for this to be tabled. I should have asked for this to go to planning committee. But it was a special council meeting and we were all there and they were all there and it was all, I apologize. I should have had the fortitude to say, you know what, we need to pause. We can't move forward with this unless this DNR issue is resolved. I also asked about oversight because another big concern I had was handing these large sums of money over. And again, I should have been more vocal in demanding more input and knowledge of how those contracts would be structured, how we would have oversight. And I should have been wanting more input from beyond those who actually benefited financially from the plan. But we often vote yes at first reading because we can't make amendments at first reading, and then we wait until second reading, and that's when the amendments come, and that's when we have more time to like dig into things and understand and hear from the public. And man, did we hear from the public. So I'm thankful that the mayor withdrew his support for this tax on Monday. But I also don't think that that withdrawal addresses the underlying issues of process and transparency. Why this project encompassed so many things, it could have hit so many committees: planning, recreation, transportation, and the public, given opportunity, plenty of runway for the public to have input on this project and to be fully informed of what it would entail, what benefits there were to the community, and what the costs would be. So I think we as a council need to ensure that any major projects such as this go through the proper process and receive full public scrutiny before it comes to any votes. I am very thankful for the comments of Councilman Rambo about trying to move forward with this kind of on an ordinance level. And again, as your chair of planning, I apologize that I did not take a more active role in questioning this project from the beginning.
Okay. For me, I agree with most of my council members here. I would like for everybody to understand our normal process, and Ms. Whitley did touch on the way things work. Is we have a first reading, and we're not allowed to make any changes. So if we vote for a project, that's basically saying we're willing to continue the discussion, because nothing's finalized until our second reading, and that's when we can make changes or recommendations. But our planning commission did not meet in November, so that might have been part of the reason of the order of things. And it wasn't, we have done things in this same order previously, but all of the required public meetings would have been scheduled, and we appreciate that everybody now has more information that's come to us. But I did not know about the DNR issues, and that really changes things for me. And there's a lot more to consider with moving forward with the project, and I hope those matters can be resolved. But I look forward to what we can bring up with Mr. Rambo, if there's anything we can do in a better way than the normal way that we work out our public comment.
First of all, thank everybody who came, and I would expect there'll be some more people coming to the 6 o'clock meeting. So thank you for your willingness to spend some time with us. As far as I'm concerned with what transpired with the project, there were a lot of things coming together all at once. And the issue of how to do this and what to do is governed by state law. State law says, number one, you can do this through a referendum. State law also says you can do it working with what's known today as Explore Charleston, used to be known as Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we didn't break any laws by bringing this forward. As has already been mentioned by some of my fellow council members, there was a lot of things coming together that could be done a different way. And for that, I sit on the planning committee, and we could have done that better. But by the same token, putting it out there for the public to see what was good, what was bad, gave us an opportunity to get the public involved. Before we started to go out there, and I see some people shaking their heads, but before we went out there for a referendum, I happen to be very much involved in the referendum for recreation and parks, and we're going to thank some people who helped us with that. Having said that, I think we could have done some things better, but as an example, talking about the open space, the picture on the front page of the Post and Courier, which showed places for open space, failed to show in the plan we will have if that had gone forward, the longest pedestrian and bicycle path anywhere in the area. That would have been there, which was part of the plan. We also need to do better with our recreation facilities, and the plan included improving the soccer fields for the kids. So that was another good thing. The aspect of giving money back to the public and doing a better job with our budget, other than having housing as the only real strong possibility for future income, was another important issue. Having said that, thank you all for coming and giving us your interest and your suggestions, and I have very much appreciated the opportunity to work with my council members to do things the right way. Thank you.
Ms. Brownson, sorry.
Thank you, and I'd like to echo the comments of thanking the citizens of Mount Pleasant for attending tonight's meeting and speaking up about this issue, as well as thanks to the many people who contacted me via email, phone, social media. I really appreciate that. Also want to thank Mayor Haney for his comments, accepting responsibility for the situation that we find ourselves in. I'm not in favor of moving forward with the proposal as presented to us on December 2nd. I'd like to explain my initial yes vote on that date and then provide some more context if you'll indulge me. As council members, we received the information about the proposal on the week of Thanksgiving. I think we all did our best to go through that information. I know that I did. It was a binder. I've got it right here in front of me. Went through it a couple of times. Very dense information, a lot to it. As a council, we advanced the proposal on the first reading with the expectation that we'd be alerting the public that something like this was being considered, and we would have further opportunities to ask questions and to push for changes. I know one of the changes that I was interested in was with the tourism development fee, there's a 20% minimum that has to be rebated to property tax owners. I asked some questions during the meeting, trying to lay the groundwork to increase that and return more in property taxes. But I will say that the longer I looked at the tourism development fee and the more critically I looked at it, it soon became apparent that this was a blunt instrument rather than a precise tool to have tourists pay for parks and infrastructure that's needed in our town. Similarly, we were not told that the land was under a DNR easement, and I found that very troubling. The next day after our town council meeting, I went to the planning commission meeting where this project was presented. I had an opportunity to speak directly with DNR and the DNR director to get the facts about this easement, and the fact that it had just been renegotiated last year weighed very heavily on my mind. I'm not in favor of developing land that's set aside for conservation. For both of those reasons, I will be a no vote on this proposal. I believe that there are some things that should be done at Patriots Point, such as boardwalks along the water, as Mr. Chapman referenced, the Medal of Honor Leadership Center, better organized parking, and upgrades to the town soccer fields. But the discussion needs to be public, and we need to hear from the public as those plans are being put together. I'm just finishing my first year on this council, and I will tell you that I've learned a great deal from this experience. As a council, we were put in a tough spot with this vote, and we must ensure that nothing like this happens again. Future proposals should follow the prescribed path, first going to a commission, then to committee, and then to the full council. We should also eliminate the rule that ordinances cannot be amended on first reading. This would result in a more robust debate and scrutiny prior to us taking a vote to advance an item for second reading. It would also give the public a better sense on what we're working on and what's being contemplated by the town council before it's voted on for a second and final time. I think there's also some things that we can do to increase transparency and to also educate the public about what the town is working on. As chairman of the Town Education Committee, I will be holding a public committee meeting in January to discuss recommendations that we can pass along to this full council for consideration. Again, I'm very sincere in that I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank you for speaking out about this online. You clearly helped us see the error of our ways on this proposal. And I'd also like to thank the mayor and my fellow council members for their comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that the outpouring of support for my statement yesterday by the views on social media, the comments, over 200 positive comments, the calls, the texts, the emails, has been overwhelming. As I said yesterday, my parents raised me to do what is right, not what is easy. And I didn't mind standing alone yesterday and saying, if you want to blame somebody, blame me, because leaders are in charge. So let me give you some context, which I've had a good conversation with the Post and Courier about maybe putting things in context sometimes. I spent the better part of a decade doing conservation easements for the Low Country Land Trust. That is the organization that holds the conservation easement on Boone Hall, on the Angel Oak, and on other many places like Brosnan Forest, which at the time I signed that easement was 13,000 acres of low country land that was conserved. I know how conservation easements work. I told the Post and Courier in an interview after that as someone who signed it on over 60,000 acres in my tenure there, that you cannot build anything on an existing conservation easement. The precedent for this was, as a member of the board of Patriots Point, that we recently renegotiated and moved an easement, because these are not permanent easements. These DNR easements, they have a term of years. I admit it was a mistake to act like we would successfully do that, or to put it on that map. I wish we had never done that. But I have a text in my town phone, and all of this will come out in the subsequent FOIAs before Thanksgiving, giving me the feedback that the town received from the Department of Natural Resources about this. So when people say they were not notified, I don't understand. Maybe that's interagency, but I will be glad to show you the text that I have that says what their feedback was and what what their response was. In all of this, Patriots Point and the Medal of Honor Center for Leadership cannot be damaged. They cannot be involved in a referendum. They must be unscathed. As a member of both of those boards, I know that they would not permit the town to use them in any way in a referendum. We all know how dirty referendums get. We know that there is dark money in referendums. We know that there are special interests who never have to disclose who they are. So if you want transparency, I have always thought the way to do it is look at these folks, and then you know exactly who to blame. If you don't like something, you don't know who to blame when it's money, buying signs and campaigning and buying ads and doing digital ads. You don't know who did that. You know who did this, and you're here taking it out on me today, which I told you to do. Don't take it out on council. You can take it out on me if you would like. Another precedent that was set was in our noise ordinance. I chair the committee that came through. We passed first reading. We didn't pass second reading for well over a year, and Mr. Tinky is in this room. The citizens saw first reading. We all knew we could do better. They worked with the business community, came back with a community-driven solution. First reading puts something in the system, shows people what the basis is. As been said, we can amend it at first reading. So that went out to the public. So there was a precedent set for there as well. And I also want to say to Mr. Icofano that I know the emails, the calendars, the notebooks, which council members bothered to pick them up, which council members didn't, and there were some who didn't look at the notebooks. But there's also a message to me that those notebooks were completed on November 10th. Nobody got their notebook 1 hour before the meeting unless they didn't pick it up, because our staff did a great job of putting that together. And the final thing that I will say is one reason this could not be thrown out in the public, and I'm a board member at Patriots Point and the Center for Leadership, all of that, everything that involved them up until the point that they said we could go public was privileged legal information. I met with our general counsel today. He reaffirmed that. That was the advice from the attorneys for all three. We could not come out and discuss their landlord-tenant relationships and their legal and contractual things until they were at a point where they told us that we could go. And I hope you will understand that, because we had to operate under the law, and having the town expose their client, tenant, landlord relationships is not something that we could do. It was not a cloak of secrecy. Thank you. There is no motion. Yes, sir, Mr. Akfan.
So I'm trying to pull up my calendar. I don't know what the date of Thanksgiving was, but we've got to be clear that you're stating that binders were available on November 10th, but I can pull an email up that binders were not going to be distributed to council until November 25th. I believe is the Monday before Thanksgiving. We got an email about 3 o'clock on Friday, the week before Thanksgiving, stating that those binders would be available in our box by November 25th. So we'll just get rid of the November 10th date, please. And that was Thanksgiving week, so some people were traveling like myself. I'm apologetic to the citizens of Mount Pleasant that you continue to bring up this recreation referendum that is 2 years old that they voted on. They voted on the referendum. They passed it. Can you please stop blaming the citizens for passing a referendum? Why do you continue to go after this referendum? They said yes. They said it. Stop blaming them. He just brought up the referendum again with dark money and all these things. Please stop blaming the referendum. I mean, I'm so upset about this right now. Privileged and legal information can easily be disclosed to us. Easily. It's called executive session. We go into them all the time. So there's zero excuse to not give privileged and legal information to council members by holding meetings and going into executive session. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, I just found the email.
Yes.
It did say a binder of detailed information about the project will be in your council mailbox Monday by noon. And I know I was out of town that week. I left Monday morning at like 5 in the morning.
The date?
This email was sent on November 22nd. And so it said a binder will be in your box Monday at noon. So I'm assuming it's the Monday after November 22nd.
Sure. And I'll produce the text that says they were completed on November 10th, and also the list of those who didn't pick up their notebook. I would like to add, I also sent an email out to council the week of Thanksgiving with this meeting leading up, saying if anyone had any reservations or concerns to please let me or the town administrator know, and there was zero response. So, based on what I saw and what I heard from council members, I don't know how I was supposed to know there were all these reservations when I asked you to share them with me if you didn't share them with me. I guess it's better to share it publicly with an audience than to send me a message and say you have some concerns. Is there any other comment before we close this discussion? Yes, sir.
Well, all of this can be vetted in a full report, so we'll look forward to that full report, starting and why this wasn't disclosed starting in September.
Anyone else? Ms. White? No? Yes, sir.
My only response to that would be, that's why there's a committee process, though. If it comes before the committee first, then you have the first option to vet it. We make sure everybody has materials. The public sees it, then it goes to that first reading of council. I just think that was the really important step that was missed.
Yes. Any other comment before we adjourn? There being nothing before us, this meeting is adjourned, and we will re-adjourn our monthly meeting at 6 o'clock.
Like March, April. The date. I don't know. This was discussed.
I'm going to run to the bathroom.
Yeah, I need to run to the bathroom too. Yeah, we didn't know the detail. It was a concept. We knew the concept. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Let me run to the bathroom. You got my ID.
The council meeting before.
I saw the notebooks on the table. 2 weeks before they got their lunch.
That was my favorite thing.
All the feigned outrage because somebody wants to run for it.
It's not fame.
I mean, the reaction should be the same as fleet. That's what
Should have gone through it. Why didn't you?
Well, they're just saying
It's in your box.
That's fine.
It's literally before Thanksgiving. He's paying attention. I'm barely paying attention to my real job.
He didn't even put up with it. Right. Well, I don't think I do.
And I did not get fired whether you want to blame me or not.
but my point is, he's got all this feigned outrage. He shouldn't be any more than he is. It's ridiculous, and I'm about to.
Yeah.
I just about said it. He stirred up the crowd. I would have too. I didn't really prepare.
I just want to prevent being
The
able
thing
to go
is,
straight to council.
people don't understand the process. Nobody went around any process except maybe could have been heard at committee. But
yes,
we don't
committee's an
discuss
important
taxing.
step.
We don't discuss taxing. The only thing that would have gone to committee was
No,
which was just
would discuss finance committee.
would talk about. I mean,
Yes.
what's wrong with letting all
Yes, you
council-
start examining or do a budget committee.
Yeah, budget.
You know,
Yeah.
committees need to be
But I mean, it was a public meeting.
I'm trying not to.
Nobody was not bringing it to us. That was.
Oh, you're feeling
I'm trying
sick?
to stay away.
That meeting was.
I was sick over Thanksgiving and I had this cough that never went away. And now all of a sudden
That.
I feel good.
Oh no. Okay, stay away from me.
Yeah.
I can't
I
get
don't
sick.
think I'm contagious.
I'm
I think
freezing
it's probably
again.
like
Just to take the suspense out, I'm not going to resign.
No. But the thing is, I mean, that is bringing it to us.
I know.
It's not like we voted on it in
We're going to be wrong whatever we say. We're gonna get another round of this. Hey Jen, boy, you are welcome. All of this is helping me understand. It's helping me understand or information for me to decide if I'm going to do this person. Yeah, you know what? The whole world's going to change. And when somebody's sitting there just spewing hate at me, I'll just think about that little baby. That's what I do. Here in Mount Pleasant Gardens, when that car hit the tree and killed those three guys a couple of weeks ago, that was their second night there. You know, that car came from the Isle of Palms, was doing 100 miles an hour. That tree was from here to Carl Ritchie from my parents' window. And it was like their second night there. And I thought, if they see and hear that, they're going to think, where did my son bring it? We should be able to get through this one pretty fast.
I'll just thank you for indulging me a few minutes.
Absolutely.
They don't have that thing.
I did some work on it. It's not him, actually. It's town staff that is in charge. Because they're trying to get rid of the waterfront. Oh, I thought that's what we were voting on tonight, the painting, swapping the waterfront. It's just the name. They just know the name. If I learned anything,
Big 80 feet.
Hey, Tim. No way. That's right. How you doing? Okay. I'm good, man. Good to see you. Thanks.
Okay. Let's get that fixed. Yeah. It was probably being sort of, No, I think it was keeping my hospital. Oh no. Yeah, no. I mean, it's like, to me, let's not do like that. We drank beers after we. Yeah. I got pictures of food though, for sure. Yeah. It's not. Right. It was hard to get people's attention about it. But now it's an opportunity to really have a
Not to you, seriously.
But the back part is. I don't know. I don't know.
We're at time.
Are we?
It runs between
All right.
the first ball field.
If everyone will be seated, we're at time to begin our meeting, please.
But that's essential to make it travel.
Yeah. If the council members will come, we can get started. 6. Madam Clerk, we are on the legal time, and we do have a quorum. So let me call to order this Tuesday, December 10th, Town Council meeting of Mount Pleasant Town Council. Thank you all for being here. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving, happy Christmas season. I want to thank all of our staff, our first responders especially, who worked for us on Thanksgiving Day and over the holidays. Before we move into the agenda, this is former police chief and now Councilman Carl Ritchie's last meeting with us because he has been promoted by the voters to sheriff of Charleston County, and we all approve and agree of that. He informed us today. Yes. Yes. He gave us today the notice of his resignation from council, and by unanimous vote, we do not accept it. So.
I think over 100,000 voters will say differently. But all right.
Good.
Carl Ritchie, 1485 Endicott Way. Mayor and council, as you said, tonight will be my last town council meeting as I prepare to assume my role as Charleston County Sheriff. I have had the honor and privilege of serving the citizens of Mount Pleasant for over 35 years as a police officer, rising to the rank of police chief before retiring, and then as a town council member. Over the years, I've encountered many challenges, been afforded many opportunities, met some amazing people, and have worked alongside the most professional police officers anywhere. Mayor and council, I want to thank you for letting me do my job. I know at times it can be very difficult, but I appreciate the trust you all have placed in me to do the right thing and what was always in the best interest of our citizens in town. And I know we've been through some very difficult times. We've had conversations, and I was able to look at each of you and or just say, I've got this, let me handle it. And thank you for doing that. And I believe we did fairly well handling the different events we had to deal with. Eric, I want to thank you, sir, for the opportunity to be your chief for so many years. We've been through so much together. From ice missiles falling from the bridge, a bridge infrastructure failure, hurricanes, pandemic, civil unrest, just to name a few. We have made a great team, and I will take all that I've learned here and serve all of Charleston County in an exemplary manner. Thank you, sir. To our residents tonight and those watching online, Thank you for allowing me to serve you and for coming out big for me during the sheriff's race. I appreciate each and every one of you. And if you don't think your vote matters, this room and those watching me, wow, the support I got from a primary to a runoff in the general election. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate y'all so much. I may be moving on to Charleston County, but Mount Pleasant will always be close to my heart. As sheriff, I will support the town and the Mount Pleasant Police Department anytime, anywhere. Chief, I look forward to working with you, serving and protecting the citizens of Mount Pleasant, and we'll be ready to help you anytime, whatever you need, sir. I'm looking very much forward to working with you again in uniform. Very much. Ask my wife to come here for Vicky. I want to recognize my wife, Vicky. What an amazing, amazing person. She has obviously been with me during my career in law enforcement. Cannot tell you how many family events, holidays I've had to jump up from the table because there's an emergency to go somewhere. I come back and my plate of food is waiting on me. Can't tell you how many times that other special events, or we'd be out on a date. The rare times we'd be out doing a date night, my phone's ringing. I'm on my phone dealing with something at work, and you put up with it, you tolerated it. I would not be the man I am standing here today without your support. And I know this past year and a half on this campaign trail has been tough. Folks, it's tough on our spouses, but the support we get from them is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Wouldn't want to be with anyone else, have anyone else by my side during this journey. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you. Woo.
All right. Our prayer this evening will be led by Chaplain Mullen, and then the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Whitley. Please rise.
I would ask that Councilman Ritchie do the pledge.
Absolutely. Would you please lead us in the pledge when we get to it, sir? All right. Please rise for the prayer by Chaplain Mullen.
Thank you, Mayor. Will you please join me in bowing your heads as we go to God in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you. We give you praises and thanks because you give us each and every day mercy, love, grace, and kindness to each and every one of us. And we thank you this evening for our mayor, for our council, for our staff, our volunteers, and our first responders, and those that work tirelessly and effortlessly each and every day to make the town of Mount Pleasant the most wonderful community to live, to work, worship, and play. Lord, as we proceed with this meeting this evening, we ask that you give us guidance, wisdom, and most of all, your blessings. It is in your holy name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion, please?
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Item 4, public hearings, awards, and presentations. Item A, we will begin with the public hearing. And please note at the bottom of this public hearing is not related to the proposed tourism development fee or the related zoning matters. This is on something that was approved by a town council in 2019, 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you said, this is the second and final public hearing for the development agreement. This is to receive input on the proposal for what is known as Patriots Annex Development Agreement. It is the development that you see in the circle here. It's an approved development under the base zoning of Waterfront Gateway District. It consists of a mix of uses to include multifamily, residential, office, retail, hotel, and a conference, amphitheater, museums, and public plazas. The property is comprising the proposed development is an approximately 30-acre parcel, which is part of the larger 162-acre parcel of land. The subject parcel is located on Patriots Point and is depicted here on this map. Again, this is the required public hearing. This will actually go to Planning Commission for a public hearing tomorrow, and it will go to committee, and it will come to you for first reading and second reading in January and February. And I'm happy to answer questions.
If there's anyone here to speak to this, this does not count as your public comment time, so please come forward. Name and address, and 2.5 minutes by ordinance, please.
Kevin Kinane, River Vista Way. I was on council when this originally came up, and I think it's important for people to go back and listen to, oh, you can't listen. Go back and read the minutes. I believe the minutes were complete back then before the mayor chopped it up and took away the actual verbatim minutes. So it'll explain a lot about why this has to happen. Well, something has to happen with Patriots Point. The PPDA was basically created to become productive and make the ships self-sustaining as tourist attractions. So people may want it to be a park, but the state didn't make it that way. The state makes it, here's this land, make it productive. So it's a delicate dance to try and make sure everything, you can't make everyone happy, but to get as much good out of it as you can along the way, but it has to become productive. So I urge people to read the minutes again. The minutes were complete back then. They aren't anymore, but back then they were, I believe. So read the deliberations of what everyone's thought process was about that property. Thank you.
Next to speak, please.
Hello, Mayor, members of council. I'm James Wilson with Level Bond Dickinson. I'm here with Mike Bennett on behalf of Patriots Annex LLC. As Ms. Reed explained, the Patriots Annex property shown here is already zoned. Planning Commission, council already zoned it Waterfront Gateway, so it's already entitled property, and actually a plan is already in place for development that this council has seen before. Town staff asked us to change the Waterfront Gateway District zoning to a PD, and we said, sure, we'd be happy to do that. It effectively just changed the name of the zoning. The substantive zoning is remaining the same. As Ms. Reed explains, this is going to go to Planning Commission tomorrow, and then it will come back to you all in January for first reading and further discussion. We're here to answer any questions, of course, and be glad to discuss it in January as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on the public hearing?
I actually have public comment.
Okay.
Guangming Whitley, 809 Post Oak Drive. I know this will be coming before us later, but I wanted to speak to this because this has been told to us that this is just a change in name, not an actual change to the project itself, but I don't believe that that is the case. I believe that there's an approved design from the Design Review Board that will be changed should we make this move to a PD. I also know that with the PD, there's opportunity for negotiation. I voted against this project when it came to us, when it was asking for 80 feet of height in the back region of that property. I felt that that was disproportionate to what the heights that we have across town and what we want for development in our community. But I was on the losing side of that vote. I think it was a 5-4 vote. I don't remember who else was on which side. But I think that this is going to require some very careful scrutiny so that we truly understand, is this just a name change, or are we getting a different project by allowing this PD to happen? So I would request that in any discussion of this, that we ensure that whatever plan was approved by the council and whatever design review board went through, that is what we stick to. And I believe the biggest change was there was a waterfront grand lawn with an amphitheater right facing the water, and then the new proposal moves it all inward to the center of the property, and there is no true waterfront access for the public. So that is my concern with this. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment in the public hearing portion before I close it? I am required by law then to sound the gavel. Yep. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael Bennett, and I'm the leasee of the land that we're talking about tonight. We also lease the golf course. You know, we've got about 250 acres here. The 20 acres is still under easement with DNR. The golf course, which is remains as a golf course, and we're developing about 30 acres. We have about 1,000 feet on the harbor, and we have a significant setback off that harbor. So there is a grand lawn area where we will be putting in a walkway on the property that we own. So I just and the lawn, the plan that was approved always could anticipate there could be changes as long as we're staying under our zoning entitlement, because it's a long-term development, and trying to figure out everything day one would be hard to do. And the lawn is moved to the center of the project, I would say the heart of the melon, so that the Grand Patriot Hotel that is built, the Main Street concept that we have, and then the seaside, what we call the Seafair Village, will surround that grand lawn. And these buildings, where I could build 50 feet on the water, is all I'm entitled to. We're building 1, 2, and 3-story buildings where I'm allowed to go 50 feet. In the middle where the lawn will be, we're entitled to go 65 feet. And right now we plan to go 3 or 4 stories. And then the only building that would be the 80 feet is the one furthest away from the water, which would be the Grand Patriot Hotel. So we've done a great job of stepping it back from 1 and 2 and 3-story buildings on the water to stepping it back from away from the water to Patriots Point Boulevard, where that hotel goes. And the little seaside village that we're creating surrounding this lawn will remind you of Old Mount Pleasant. It's 1 and 2-story clapboard-sided buildings with metal roofs or cedar shake, and public areas. And it'll be a pedestrian. There'll be parking on the streets and in the parking lots, but it'll be a pedestrian village. I'm sorry we don't have that on the screen. It's really beautiful. Anyway, thank y'all. And we're happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any other comments before public comment on this public hearing is closed? If not, this public hearing is closed. Item B is the Cresco Award presentation. I ask our staff to come forward and read the proclamation and then bring forward our honoree, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. I'm Kate Miller. I'll be reading the proclamation for Mayor Mulhaney tonight. Whereas the Mount Pleasant Historical Commission is charged with promoting the preservation, understanding, and appreciation of the town's physical and cultural heritage, and whereas the Mount Pleasant Historical Commission has created the Cresco Historical Stewardship Award, recognizing an individual, organization, or group that has done exemplary work in preserving, studying, restoring, or promoting the history of Mount Pleasant. And whereas Boone Hall Plantation and Gardens has been awarded the Cresco Historical Stewardship Award for its exemplary effort in historic preservation through the Gin House Rehabilitation Project. And whereas the Gin House Rehabilitation Project has preserved the architectural and cultural integrity of this National Register listed site, addressing structural challenges and enhancing its role in an educational and interpretive space for visitors. And whereas Boone Hall's Plantation's commitment to conservation was further demonstrated through the establishment of a conservation easement, permanently protecting nearly 600 acres of land, ensuring the property remains dedicated to agriculture, education, and tourism for generations to come. And now, therefore, I, Kate Miller, for Mayor Mulhaney, on behalf of the Mount Pleasant Historical Commission, am honored to present on this day, December 10th, 2024, the annual Cresco Historical Stewardship Award to Boone Hall Plantation and Gardens.
Would Jim Westerhold please come forward? Thank you all for your
Wow, what an honor. My name is Jim Westerhold. I'm honored to be the general manager of Boone Hall Plantation almost for 5 years now. And I represent a great staff, great team at Boone Hall that takes part in this and takes a lot of pride in what they do. And this recognizes that pride. Mr. Mayor, Town Council, thank you so much for this recognition. Boone Hall loves to be in this community, your community, our community. To the residents of Mount Pleasant, thank you also for recognizing Boone Hall and for your support. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Item C is the 2024 CAPRA Reaccreditation Award presentation. Please come forward.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I have with me tonight, we have Matt Hansen, Shelley Bosner, and Megan Lynn here with us tonight. And I want to let you know about our award that we got. In 2019, MPRD was the first municipal recreation department in the state to be awarded national accreditation from the National Parks and Recreation Association. The accreditation cycle lasts for 5 years, and I'm excited to announce to council that in October, MPRD was successfully reaccredited, meeting each of the 154 national standards with a perfect score. The Commission for the Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, otherwise known as CAPRA, is the only national accreditation of park and recreation departments and is a valuable measure of the department's overall quality of operation, management, and service to the community. MPRD is one of only 213 parks and recreation agencies in the United States to receive this prestigious award, representing less than 1% of more than 23,000 agencies nationwide. Achieving CAPRA accreditation is the best way to demonstrate to the public that your department and your staff are operating with best practices of the profession. It holds the department accountable to the public and ensures responsiveness to meet their needs. It creates an environment for regular review of operation and procedures and promotes continuous improvement. And most importantly, it recognizes Mount Pleasant as a great place to live. This award would not be possible without the hard work of this dedicated team here with me tonight and several other people and our whole department that provides the services to this community. However, work toward this award wasn't only in the recreation department. Many of the standards require input from nearly every department in the town. This is truly a town award, and so congratulations and thank you to everybody that contributed so much to this effort. Mayor Haney and members of council, I present to you the 2024 CAPRA Reaccreditation Award and the outstanding team of professionals that earned it. There you go.
Item D is recognition of Recreation Advisory Commission members. Councilman Chapman is going to handle this.
I know one of the members is here. Are any other members of the Recreation Commission here tonight? Dick, do you want to come up and receive the award? Okay, at any rate, we will send these to them, but I purposely asked for, come on. Thank you very much. I purposely asked that for the work that the Recreation Commission did for 2 years after the passage of what I think is probably the most significant referendum this town has ever had, where the children of Mount Pleasant. That referendum passed because we had members like this just here that were willing to go out, stand in the rain, stand asking people to vote for it, and then came and spent 2 years helping us to recognize the importance of our children and to get projects underway. And we will send the rest of these to the members who served for 2 years, but I will read to you what this says. It's a certificate of appreciation awarded to April Gift in recognition of your service on the Recreation Advisory Commission and commitment to improving the recreational opportunities for the residents of the town of Mount Pleasant. Thank you very much, Ms. Gift, and thank you for your willingness to continue to serve, and we look forward to great things coming from the commission. Thank you.
Item E is a longevity award, and this is from our Department of Public Services.
Mayor Haney and members of council, it's my pleasure to recognize Michael Mazik for 25 years of service to the town of Mount Pleasant. In December of 1999, Michael started his career with the town as a laborer in the sanitation division, and he was quickly promoted to the position of sanitation operator, where he started driving the trucks. Michael is proficient with most of our equipment and knows all of our routes. Because of this, we've been able to utilize him on both the garbage and the vegetative debris and bulk items side of the waste management operation, and he has served both as a waste management operator crew leader and a heavy equipment operator crew leader. The Waste Management Division and the people that work in it provide weekly garbage and trash collection. They have a direct impact on the health and safety of the town and its residents, and unlike some departments that residents hope they don't need to see weekly, no offense, fire and police, but residents look forward to seeing the members of the Waste Management Division. The division also supports special events like the Christmas Parade, the Cooper River Bridge Run, and they become the town's main effort as we clean up debris after large storms and hurricanes. Michael and the others in the division are unsung heroes. They show up every day and do their job without much fanfare or praise, and when the job is done, they head home. Most times, we never hear about the great things they do daily, but sometimes we do. An example of Michael's kindness and dedication was reported when a resident reached out and told us how Michael stopped his truck and helped a resident capture her deaf dog after it had escaped the house, and as she was trying to get to her first chemotherapy appointment. Over the years, residents have also reached out praising him for his cheerful demeanor and respectful interactions, noting his positive impact on the community. His hard work, and particularly during the post-Hurricane Dorian debris cleanup in 2019, earned numerous letters of gratitude and appreciation from the residents. I would also like to thank Michael's family and friends, because we all know without their love and support they've given over the years, he couldn't have done this without them. Michael, your commitment to excellence and your work ethic has been a true asset to the Waste Management Division. The outstanding service you provide is a testament to your dedication to the town of Mount Pleasant and a reflection of the consistent, outstanding service the entire Public Services Department provides. It's an honor to work with you. Thank you for everything you've done and will continue to do. Congratulations on 25 years with the town.
Bravo.
Thank you. Her picture's the most important. Take care. Yep. You too.
Thank you very much.
The right hat on.
Agenda item 5 is approval of the minutes from the November 12th, 2024 special and regular town council meetings and the October 24 financial statement. Do we have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item 6 is public comment. If you have a yeah, I think you're a little early. That's all right.
So eager.
If you have a public comment, please come when your name is called. Name and address in 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker, Richard Gwynn. Okay. Next speaker, Greg Sebecki. Next is Mac Barnhart. Okay, thank you. Next is Bob Lawrence.
Bob Lawrence, 2217 Cultura Circle. John Iacofano, I'd like to thank you for your integrity, ethics, and representing the residents of Mount Pleasant. I agree with your post and summary today too. Very well done and much appreciated. I sat through the December 2nd presentation thinking it was very slick, lots of spending, not much on detail nor accountability. I also thought, why such a big rush? What leadership would even let this get to this point? And how about we, the residents, get to vote on such a big spending bill? Moving over to our neighborhood, we have Liberty Hill Farm, a recent build, approximately 240 homes, of which 80 homes have enclosed our garages, before we were advised about the restrictive garage enclosure regulations, and quite a few more homes who want to enclose their garages. Garages are required to be 40% open. We have been trying to work with the mayor, the administrator, the town council for the last several months regarding the garage enclosure regulation, to no avail. We have written several letters explaining our position, asking to meet to discuss compromises allowed by FEMA and community rating system. We have not had a single response to our letters. Total silence, total lack of leadership, all of this disregarding our health, welfare, our children, our safety, security, protection, property deterioration, etc., from the garage space being 40% open. This is ruining the quality of our lives, our property, and costing us a lot of money. Our neighborhood families have come to town council and committee meetings to make comments. No responses, no follow-up, no leadership, no nothing. One councilman reached out and came to our neighborhood. That councilman is Iacofano. John talked with a group of us after a council meeting and set a time to visit our neighborhood that week at 8 a.m. John came a bit before 8 a.m. We visited several of the homes. John was totally engaged, talked with the homeowners, and asked great questions. He was definitely interested and concerned about our residents and trying to understand the circumstances. Thanks, John. To wrap up, I will ask that the Town of Mount Pleasant Mayor, Administrator, and Council read and review our letters and demonstrate some integrity, some concern for our residents, and demonstrate leadership to answer our concerns and work with us. Please put this on the agenda at some point. We will certainly like to have responses to our actual letters and to meet with Town Council as we have requested for the last several months. Thank you.
Bruce Landsberg.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. Mr. Mayor, I'm give you great comment for taking full responsibility for the previous situation here. I decided to avoid the rush and let everybody else get
We
their
need your
words
name
out
and
first.
address, please. Yes.
Yeah.
Name and address.
Oh, yes, Bruce Landsberg. I think that was noted. 3720 Oconee Loop.
Thank you.
That's Carolina Park, in case you didn't notice. I'd like to also recognize Councilmember Iacofano and Rambo for speaking up and taking the lead. I think the word transparency has been bandied about here quite a bit, and I think maybe you've got the idea that we'd like to see a little bit more of it. I'm not sure this is the time or the place to get into the details, but Eric, I suspect you're going to have a little bit more to do here in the future. And rather than fixing the blame, I think it's more important that we focus on fixing the problem. And to quote the governor of Michigan, fix the damn roads. And I think we can all agree that we have a bit of a challenge there, and it's not an easy fix. And one of the deals that we have going before us in Carolina Park, piece of property has just been sold, but it's all been sort of undercover. We'd really like to know a whole lot more about what's going on here, and this follows the same pattern that we had with the Patriots Point situation. So, on behalf of the Carolina Park residents, we'd really like to see a little bit more. I understand that you're encumbered by a deal that was signed in 2011, but I think it's time that we take a look at things and do the right thing. Thank you very much for your time and your service.
Peter Fontenot. Noah Moore.
Noah Moore, 1309 Founders Way. I know I spoke earlier. I want to reiterate, there's a lot of noise about the things that are going on with council. You're going to be here for a while. I don't see you going anywhere. I need you to do the right thing and protect this property. Gary, you've done so much for recreation. I have known him for so long and watched all the things that he's done. Protect this area. This trail, you know it. I mentioned it before. It's considered Peyton's Trail because of my son. Boy Scouts have created benches, workout areas on that trail. When you say that this is going to be the longest road, pedestrian, and bikeway, that is not right. I looked at the plans. It's a road with a sidewalk next to it. Come on. This is a trail out there with trees, nature. This is what we need. My kid, my youngest son runs on that trail. The Mount Pleasant Track Club runs on that trail. It gets in disrepair. It's in disrepair right now. And when it gets that way, people call me and they go, Noah, can you please get a bunch of people to come out here and clean it up? And I do. After the storm, when there were trees down, people just went out there with chainsaws and cut down the trees to make the trail passable. We got to do better. I've lived here almost 30 years. I love this town. I'm a realtor. I understand development. But this is our town. These are our kids. I'm going to close with saying something that completely not on this. There are 40 kids from Mount Pleasant Track Club that are going to the national championship in Indiana this Saturday for the cross country national championship. Be proud of that. Those kids are our kids. Thank you.
Mike Van Horn.
Hello, Council. Mike Van Horn, Iron Bridge Drive. I just want to reiterate as far as a couple things that I spoke about earlier. You know, the litmus test definitely didn't get passed on this entire reading as far as the Patriots Point. Though I'm fully, want to see Patriots Point continue to get developed, one thing that I would like this council to do is to recognize the opportunity to move forward, but eliminate any tax whatsoever as far as to the residents. We have an opportunity to sit there and be self-governed and self-funded with what we have right now. The other thing is, if there's a bond issue that comes about for this, that needs to be eliminated also. Again, we don't need to sit there and put Mount Pleasant in debt to move forward. Every 5 years, the residents sit there and take a tax increase on their property, and it's on 15% across the board. So we have that opportunity with that 15% every 5 years to sit there and add money. I know GM, you mentioned as far as we'll eventually run out of funding and we'll be in a negative. That may be the case, but again, as long as we continue to do smart growth, we will be in the right situation. We will remain in the black. And Mayor Haney, I apologize, what's going on with your family and stuff. But when you make your address for 2024 as far as the state of the Mount Pleasant, I want you to consider, what Miss Thomasia looking down would sit there and say, would she give you that thumbs up or would she give you a thumbs down on this? So take a look at that. Thank you.
April Gift.
April Gift, 1963 Palmetto Isle Drive. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Based on the referendum being passed in November of 2022. I am here as a concerned resident about the progress of the courts and the park on Rifle Range Road. I know that process can be long and the government can be slow, but it's time to get these projects started. I don't claim to know the ins and the outs of the process, but when it comes to these projects, when are we breaking ground? The Low Country is the 4th largest adult league in the United States, and we cannot add more teams based on not enough courts. 3 to 5 teams are turned away a season, and players must look for another team, which continues to create too large for other teams and not enough playing time. The Charleston County School League has over 1,600 junior players, and their matches have to be played in Charleston because we do not have enough courts in Mount Pleasant. So I asked, when can we get these 2 projects started? Also, I wanted to add, pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports, and as Al Bradshaw has said at one of our commission meetings, he hopes that he is still alive to see that these courts are built on Rifle Range. Wouldn't it be nice to see the fastest growing sport to be able to host tournaments and also play outside on their own dedicated courts? As an employee of USTA South Carolina, I would like to suggest as a group, council, mayor, and all parties involved with the tennis center, that we take a look at the benefits of tennis for health reasons. I have included a copy for you in a bag with a red ball. Please take a look at it. And I also have a golden ticket for you, which hopefully we can set a date for council, mayor, and staff to come to the courts and learn about the importance about learning tennis for health reasons. So wear your sneakers, comfortable clothing, and we'll supply the rest. I hope we can choose a date to meet in early 2025, learn about the health benefits, and hopefully breaking ground will be sooner than later. Thank you for listening.
Doug Morton.
Thank you. Good evening. Doug Morton, 2004 Country Manor Drive. Part 2, tourism development fee. Make no bones about this, this is a tax. No matter how you put a bow on it and say that it's not, the fee is a tax. It's coming across as a sales tax. Just keep that in mind when you're talking about it. It's glossed over. Your fancy video that you're putting out there talking about tourism development fee, it's a tax. We don't want a tax. Thank you for pulling it back, but keep in mind going forward, we don't want more taxes. Can I get clarification on the supermajority? Is that 7 of 9? Can anybody answer that question?
We're not allowed to answer questions during public comment.
Not a problem. This is a backdoor attempt to get this passed. Just because the state allows it, and I'm referencing Mr. Chapman's response that it's legal. So what? It's a backdoor attempt to put a tax through by a supermajority of council members. Regardless if it's legal, it's still a bad deal. I'm not going to put anything more onto the sales tax thing because I've already said it during the special meeting earlier. I did want to mention something about the pickleball though, so I'm going to get totally off topic. I don't play that much. My wife plays a lot, and I get invited from time to time to play. Whatever y'all's decision is to do with pickleball, you got to put more emphasis on it that people want to play and do not want to get pushed around by basketball players on joint courts. They don't mix. One pickleball court destroys a full court in basketball. You go to the park up by Costco. I don't know what the name is. I got invited to play. We were pretty much made guilty, to feel guilty playing pickleball because we were taking up a full court of basketball players. Not cool. There was a lot of pressure. It was really weird. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Kevin Cunane.
Apologize for speaking again, but I haven't been here in a while. Those of you on council know that I've cataloged a number of activities by the mayor over his time in office. Some dates all the way back to when he started. You have it all in writing. You know, while I empathize and I actually understand the stuff going on with his parents, that has nothing to do with what went on with this Patriots Point thing. Nothing. I mean, I hope everything works out. I'll even pray for them. But it has nothing to do with what happened here. So I think it's time for the council to start looking at the post-Haney Mount Pleasant. It's time. He's on all these ex officio boards around the region. And it always seems to me that there's a secret shroud over what happens. There's gatekeeping of information. There's things that the mayor will bring back at the wrong time. That's not accurate. That's not complete. Over and over and over. And he's always, oh, I'm so busy at this board or that board. I work so hard. But we don't see a work product. We just hear the stories. And remember, Mr. Mayor, he's a storyteller by trade, right? So it's time, I think, for the council to say, we see what's going on, we acknowledge it, it's irrefutable, because I've never been challenged on being untruthful with anything I've sent you, not once. It's all out there. Take action. There's a council of equals. You can pull him off any of these boards at any time. Appoint someone else. Send someone else. I think Mr. Chapman would be a much better choice on a lot of them. And we don't always agree. But he'd be a lot better. Most of you would be a lot better. Actually, all of you would be, let's face it. As for Ms. Whitley, you mentioned there was 2 ways that we could move forward with the taxes dropping off. There's a third. Cut elsewhere. It never seems to be on the agenda. I mean, the mayor drives around in a work truck. It's not just him. The prior mayor's had a vehicle too. But like, why does the mayor have a work truck that he runs around in? That's a town vehicle. He lives, a quarter mile from here probably. Is it to come to town halls? Is it to go to ribbon cuttings? Can he get a gas card if he's traveling for the job? I mean, I keep asking for records of what's it used for. They refuse. Thank you.
Michelle Stress.
Hi, Michelle Stress, 545 Veranda View. Originally, I wanted to come up here and talk about how important it is for us to get a tree task force. That's really important, and I'll be here again to talk about that. But just hearing everybody talk, so I'm just going to say that this seems like a bit of a witch hunt for Mayor Haney, and I don't know, maybe perhaps some of you are only have been to this, because I haven't seen a lot of your faces, and I've been here quite a bit. And Mayor Haney's done amazing things for this town. And you can snicker all you want, but I haven't seen any of you all at some of the events. So and it seems like poor communication happened here. But that's all I'm going to say about that. But I do apologize for the witch hunt. I think it's horrible. And there was a comment made by you, Mr. Iacofano, that you were very upset about that. Why do we keep bringing up the referendum? I just want to I want to speak to that. Talk about being upset. That when that happened, I was relatively recent when all that the buzz was happening, and that was really a bait and switch what you guys pulled. That even the marketing for that was vote parks, and it was a picture of a tree, and so I thought, yeah, vote parks. That's what we want. Well, in fact, you guys, what you did was that then you made a park for sports. You didn't make a park. That was already a park. It was a natural park. But you plowed down the trees, old growth trees. You filled in the wetlands. You put a paved road in the middle of it. And then you proceeded to put a chain link fence on both sides to impede the traffic of wildlife. You ruined it. It was already a park. But you spun the marketing message. So that was nothing but a bait and switch. And that's why it continues to be brought up. I voted yes for that. And I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that I got duped. And so if I could take that vote back, I absolutely would. So when they say, you said, don't blame them, they voted for it. Yeah, because we didn't understand it. You were very sly. Same thing with the 526. Oh, green space. It's not green space. And I'm really bummed that those people left, the Bennett, because they're trying to say that they're adding in green space. A lawn, what are we, Mount Vernon? Nobody, you don't see social media talking about how wonderful lawns are these days. Anyway, you get the message. Thanks.
Chris Dakinchuk. Okay. David Quick.
David Quick, 1502 Village Square. You know, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm reminded of the Chinese word for crisis. It's a combination of danger and opportunity. We have an opportunity coming out of this to be better and to improve a trail and conservation easement that has been neglected. And I would like to go back to the comments that I was making. I was talking about our work on the Green Commission to establish a pilot program to restore our canopy, and how we had asked residents for ideas of where we can plant trees, because we have the money to plant trees in our tree bank. We just don't have the places to plant them. And we're losing trees right and left in our town. And again, I'm for the tree task force. I think that needs to happen. But, you know, this is right now, this is the issue at hand. And we actually had the trail at Patriots Point on the list for planting trees, and staff pulled it off. And it was like, no, we're pulling it off because something's coming down the pike on this. And okay. We chose some other sites, but there's no other opportunity quite like Patriots Point. So I see this as an opportunity to engage our public, to engage the Sustainability Institute, Boy Scout groups, and runner groups, and conservation people, and people who really want to improve this trail. Now, it is an asset, and I'll speak in real estate terms that maybe Mr. Bennett could understand. It's an amenity. Who wouldn't want, as a hotel operator, to give your guests an opportunity to walk a 1 mile nature trail right outside the door of their hotel? Who wouldn't want, as a condominium or real estate agent, an opportunity to say, look at this amenity of getting out into nature? So I see this as an opportunity, and it won't cost $100 billion to build. You know, we can plant trees for less than a few thousand. Noah and I are going to organize a walk so that people can get refamiliarized with that. And I'm hoping that some of you, I know you all can't go, but I'd like to give an opportunity for everybody who wants to walk the trail and see what we got there. Thank you.
Brian Ansley. Mr. Ansley. Okay. Josh Dix.
Good evening, Council. My name is Josh Dix. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy for the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors. I live at 640 Rutledge Avenue. I'm here to speak tonight about the proposed draft zoning code that has been working its way through Planning Commission and Planning Committee and now comes to y'all's desk. This was an opportunity to address a lot of our growth needs that we're seeing, not only here in Mount Pleasant, but across the region. Unfortunately, what's come before you now doesn't meet those needs. And the worst part is we're not keeping people from moving to Mount Pleasant. We're preventing people currently here from staying here. We have a aging demographic in Mount Pleasant. We need smaller scale, diverse housing options. Cottage courts allow for the opportunity to age in place. We need to expand that opportunity, not restrict in this town. We're seeing a lot of growth, and it's not all coming from off. A quarter of our growth is organic. It's people born here, and we want them to stay here. As our high school kids graduate and move on to the next phase of their life, will they be able to afford to come back to the Mount Pleasant where they grew up? Missing middle housing opportunities provide those home ownership opportunities for folks. We need to engage that and create more in our zoning code. The existing policies have led to sprawl, stressing our infrastructure. The proposed zoning code maintains the status quo. Please restore a lot of the original recommendations that were part of the consultant's report. You use tax dollars to hire trained professionals to give you good, sound land use recommendations. We would encourage you to use those. Thank you.
James Wilson. Allison Shore.
Good evening. Allison Shore, 2220 Cultura Circle. I live in Liberty Hill Farm, here to talk to you about the garage enclosures. I've been here before, and many others have as well. Again, I enclosed my garage, certainly as others had, to protect belongings, to prevent issues with dirt, pollen, insects. Also provide safety for me as a single person living in my townhome. After reviewing the issue, installing vents as recommended by FEMA would appear to resolve any concerns. I never saw or signed a non-conversion agreement, and after speaking with my salesperson at Liberty Hill Farm, they state that it doesn't exist for my building of townhomes, and it was not required at the time. So we certainly would appreciate we appreciate the extension that you did provide for us through January, but we continue to ask for a meeting to discuss options, and we just feel that we're not being heard. So again, we just ask for some consideration. Thank you.
Lawrence Tisdale.
Mayor, Town Council, Lawrence Tisdale, 1535 Trumpington. I just wanted to come up and I just wanted to address Councilman Iacofano. Thank you so much for bringing us to attention with Mount Pleasant residents for Patriots Point. The word transparency before was said, and I think it really needs to be stressed. The more transparency, the better in this whole project. Less taxes, the better. What we went through the last 4 years is economic disaster. Hopefully it gets better in the next 4 years, but some of us living paycheck to paycheck, and it's pretty tough. Also, I just wanted to, Chief Ritchie, thank you so much. We're going to miss you. Councilman Santos, thank you for all you do for our youth. And I just wanted to bring up, me and Councilman Chapman don't see eye to eye on a lot of politics, but this gentleman came out for the East Cooper Warhawks this past a couple weeks ago. And he didn't stay for 2 minutes to take a picture with the boys. He stayed the 2 hours with every single team, clapped, took pictures. Every kid was like, holy, they were just amazed by, some town council was there. So thank you so much for being there for the boys at East Cooper Warhawks. And thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
That's all I have signed up, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone who did not have the opportunity to sign up who would like to speak? All right, then public comment is closed. Let's move to item 7, which is the consent agenda items. Do we have a motion, please? Is that a move to approve?
Move to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second.
And a second before we take the motion on all these. Item D in the consent agenda item. Councilman Ritchie, if you would like to address that as sort of a parting, since you championed this item D about veterans.
Absolutely. Right now, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, this was an ordinance to amend Section 40.21 of our Mount Pleasant Code to provide for a waiver of recreation fee charges for fully disabled veterans in the town of Mount Pleasant. As a veteran myself, come from a long line of veterans. My sons are veterans. This was something that was brought to me by many that have served, and we all sacrifice, but some have made sacrifices which have impacted their health and their ability 100%. And this is an opportunity to allow those to get involved in our recreation programs at no fee that without a doubt will help both physically, emotionally, mentally strengthen them. So that's why this was brought forward, and I ask that it be approved.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And that is item D in the consent agenda items. We have a motion to approve in a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Final reading of consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Section 8, planning. Now, Ms. Reed, thank you for containing your enthusiasm.
Well, it was tough, but I tried. So, this is first reading for our ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 156 zoning code of the Town of Mount Pleasant Code and Ordinances. With that, we know that you have seen this so many times, but I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Cousineau, our consultant. She's going to go through just a few slides with you, and so I'll turn it over to her at this point.
Good evening, Mayor Haney, Town Council, Kelly Cousineau with White & Smith Planning and Law Group. I just want to give you guys a quick overview of the drafts that you've been reviewing for the last year or so. So we provided a consolidated final draft zoning code about a year ago. That reflected staff and the consultant team's input, as well as Planning Commission's input received through a series of meetings in 2022 and 2023. Then we spent some time this year with you all we had some special meetings with the Planning Committee, a couple of special meetings with you all over the summer, and we prepared a revised public hearing draft that is what is before you tonight. This went to the Planning Commission for a public hearing on October 9th and was continued to October 23rd. They ultimately made a unanimous recommendation for approval of the revised code with several amendments proposed in separate motions, and I'll go through those on the next slides. The Planning Committee of Council met on November 4th and the 21st and provided essentially recommendations for approval or denial of the Planning Commission's proposed amendments. So what I wanted to do tonight was to go through both of those. I'm going to start with the Planning Commission recommendations where there was general consensus between the Commission and the Committee. The first is to increase the open space requirement from 5% to 10% in the new redevelopment center overlay district, which is one of the mixed-use centers overlay district, which implements the hubs from the town's comprehensive plan. That was a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee. The next is it's more or less a typo. It was to change the building step back requirement. This is in the general building design standards from the 5th to the 4th story. That applies to buildings that are more than 3 stories and 45 feet in height. So it makes sense for that step back to be between the 1st and 4th stories. Again, unanimous recommendations from both the Commission and the Committee. The third unanimous recommendation was to require planting groups of trees in parking islands as recommended in the Community Forestry Master Plan, and also requiring flush-mounted standing curbs where applicable. The next recommendation is not an amendment to the draft zoning code per se. You all have heard some folks agree with this recommendation tonight from the community, but this recommendation would be to establish a task force for trees to review what's in the current draft zoning code and recommend any additional improvements or changes. The next Planning Commission recommendation, there was semi-consensus between the Commission and the Committee. This is to maintain the accessory structure height at the current 20-foot maximum in the Old Village Historic District, as well as prohibit an accessory structure from being taller than the main structure. This was recommended by the Planning Commission by a vote of 7-2. The Planning Committee agreed with the portion that would prohibit an accessory structure from being taller than the principal structure, but they recommended that accessory structures be limited to 25 feet in height, which is what's proposed townwide. The next 3 recommendations, there was some difference of opinion between the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee. And for each of these, we have some more slides with additional context. I will go through those if y'all would like me to, or we can just focus on the recommendation and then any questions you might have. So this one, I'll start with the recommendation, is to increase the lot width for lots in the new Neighborhood Character Preservation Overlay District to prevent additional subdivisions that result in narrower cookie-cutter lots. That was a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. They also suggested considering the impact of the 20% setback reduction allowed for non-conforming lots, since this change would result in making existing lots non-conforming. Planning Committee recommended denial of this proposed revision by a vote of 4-0.
Would y'all like me to go through any of the background or additional information?
Council? No?
No, sir.
No. Okay.
Okay, all right. Then I will go to the next recommendation, again unanimous from the Planning Commission, is to review the residential parking ratios and consider increasing the requirement with a portion of that increase to be pervious. Their primary concern is that garage spaces can count as required parking spaces, but residents often use garages for storage rather than for vehicle parking. Planning Committee recommended continuing to allow garage spaces to count as required parking, and this applies to detached house dwellings as well as townhouse dwellings. The Planning Committee made this recommendation by a vote of 3-1. And again, happy to go through any of that background if y'all would like.
Anyone?
Thank you, Jake. Thank you. First of all, thank you for putting all the votes on here.
Sure.
Is that your idea? It's an excellent idea.
Michelle's idea.
I would
I
take
can't
credit.
take
Take
credit
credit
for that.
anyway. So my question is, as we look to vote on this, is so one is stating they voted 9-0 for. Is that correct? The commission voted for that, and
This
then
particular recommendation,
that,
yes, sir.
and then the planning committee is recommending against that. Is that what I'm asking?
Correct.
So what we're following the planning committee's recommendation, just to be clear? Is that?
That's up to you all. The draft zoning code in front of you essentially includes the Planning Committee's recommendation, because
Right.
the Planning Commission was recommending something different. So I will turn to this next slide. So these are excerpts from the current code, or the draft code that's in front of you, which does allow private garage spaces to count.
Right.
And it
But
allows, but
we're
does
not, right now, we're not voting on each one of these things as you go through them. We're just doing one vote. So I'm just being, is that correct? I mean, I'm just being clear here, so.
Right, these are all included.
Right.
In the
They're all included in one vote, and then we have several.
Right, first reading, there's no.
I understand. I'm just saying, so just to be clear that even though commission may be voting 9-0 one way, and then the numbers are a little backwards. It's just it'd be like 9-0, then 1-3, but if that makes sense. But so I just want to be clear to the public as well that it's the committee then that we are following on this, obviously. Yes.
The draft zoning code that's before
Right.
you includes the Planning Committee's recommendations that were made over the course of, I don't know how many 6 or so special meetings we had over the past year. Right. These recommendations that I'm going through now are not necessarily reflected in the draft. This particular one happens to be because the Planning Committee recommended keeping it as it is. The Planning Commission was recommending changes. So the draft before you does not include these recommendations from the Planning Commission. They were recommendations for changes. And so the Planning Committee agreed with some and disagreed with others.
Okay, thank you. It's just, I got you. Semantics. It's strange we're showing it 9-0 and then 3-1, and it's actually an opposite vote.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
yes.
it was, and I apologize.
I'm a sports guy, sorry.
A little bit. I thought the motion that Planning Committee made, I thought I was making it more clear in the slide, but I did not.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Last Planning Commission recommendation is to prohibit murals since the town cannot regulate content. That was a vote of 6-3. The current draft before you tonight does allow murals. It allows one hand-applied mural on the side or rear of any non-residential building, subject to review by the Design Review Board. The DRB is not reviewing content. The code does not limit or regulate the content of a mural, but they are looking at design-related elements and consistency with neighborhood context and that sort of thing. This is something that you all considered, Planning Committee considered, and Planning Committee recommended denial of the Planning Commission's recommendation. So essentially to keep the draft as it is. And again, happy to go through a couple of other options for murals if y'all would like.
Are you through?
I am.
Okay, Mr. Rambo, if you have a
I
question.
just want to clarify, the basis for the planning committee's 4-0 denial of that planning commission recommendation is just the fact that this body had already discussed this topic in length and that's the decision that we had come to. We spent like an hour at a town council meeting doing that. And so we feel like that question had already been asked and answered by this body and it was over. So
thank you. I remember that. Okay.
Okay. Got one last slide for y'all. The planning committee also discussed whether a sign should be posted on a lot when a tree removal permit is issued, but we're divided on whether a sign should be required. There was a vote, but it was a tie vote. The planning committee also recommended elimination of cottage courts as an allowed use by a vote of 3-1. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is first reading. We have not had a motion yet.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to approve in a second. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real briefly, I think this goes back to the concept that we should be able to amend things on first reading in order to give the public some comfort of what will be passed at the final reading. So just wanted to mention that. I've been a champion of the cottage court, as many of you know. I see Laura shaking her head. She's not a fan, but I think I've saved it from the cutting room floor once and hope to do so again. For those of you in the audience who are unaware of what a cottage court is, it is a series of little homes that are clustered around a public courtyard of green space. I have a personal ambition of once my kids get out of the house, I would love to downsize to something like that. I hate maintaining a big home. I think I take the point of the Association of Realtors that it has benefits for older folks who are aging in place. It comes from a historical development pattern that I think would fit in well with Mount Pleasant. You see them in England and places just as old or even older than we are. And so I hope that as a council, we can take up this issue at second reading and ensure that cottage courts are put into this plan, maybe some controls so they can't be built just everywhere. But I think if they were to be built, you would find it would be one of the most popular new housing developments in Mount Pleasant, given its historical context, the green space, the smaller homes. Typically what I hear from folks, they're upset when a entire lot is covered by a gigantic home, and this would present an alternative to that. Do you want to touch real quick on the tree task force? I do think that is a good idea that we should pursue. And I would humbly request that we add a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals to that list, as they are the group that hears the most about tree issues in our town. And so hopefully at second reading, when we can make changes to this stuff, we could get into that. Finally, I do have a question. If we do vote on this tonight to move it forward towards the second and final vote, when does this take effect? Does this affect projects that are already in the pipeline, or does this affect things that come in after it's approved and finalized? Mr. Pagliarini?
Sure. Thank you, sir. Well, of course, it'll take effect at the time of final reading, unless council designates otherwise. To answer your question, it depends on vested rights, time of applications, and whatnot. So it really, every situation may be different depending on when applications were filed. But South Carolina vested rights law would control.
Okay, my concern is I just don't want this to affect people who have been in front of our planning department in good faith, and then all of a sudden we are changing the rules kind of mid-process.
Right, and as I said, the date of effect is by default generally when council approves final reading. There are scenarios where council will, in the final version of the ordinance, designate a certain time, date when it will take effect. So that is something for council to consider.
Okay, and I would encourage my colleagues to consider that as we approve this. And then finally, I just want to say that this does do a lot for tree protection in this town. It doubles the size of the tree protection zone to bring us in line with Charleston County. City of Charleston and other municipalities. I think that's a great start, and I'm excited about where this tree task force could take us with respect to further tree protections in this town. Thank you.
And let me remind everybody, this is first reading. Yes.
I would like to speak to the cottage court concept. And I voted to remove the cottage courts from this. Mount Pleasant is a unique community. The communities that we were being compared to for cottage courts had a median home price that was a third of the median home price of Mount Pleasant. If the goal of cottage court, which is a huge increase in density, is to create attainable housing in Mount Pleasant, it is not going to do that. I keep hearing from developers and people, well, you need to have density in Mount Pleasant. You need to have, apartment complexes and cottage court and, add 20,000 people to the footprint of Mount Pleasant. No, absolutely not. The citizens of this town do not want that. We don't have the fire stations, the police stations, the public schools, the space, the road. We don't have room in our community for 20,000 more people to cram into it. And when we do build higher density in our town, it is nowhere near affordable. There was a group that came and wanted higher density. We denied it. It was duplexes. They're now building $1 million+ duplex. Each half of the duplex is over $1 million. That's what they're doing. These cottage courts will be $1 million. They will each, these little tiny houses. They will not be attainable. It's just increasing density. I'm strongly against including cottage courts in this. And I think, there's no silver bullet, right? No community nationwide has solved the problem of attainable housing, but density is not the answer in the town of Mount Pleasant.
All right, we have a motion and a second to pass first reading of this item A1. Is there any further discussion before we vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 24040.
Item number 2, presentation of annual report regarding development agreements. Mrs. Reed.
Yes, sir. There was a copy of this or a link to it in your packet, so I won't go through all of it, but this is a requirement by ordinance at the end of every year to provide council with a report of our development agreements. We have 3 development agreements. Real quick, our first one, Carolina Park. All of our improvements and transportation obligations have been fulfilled. If you'll recall, in December of last year, Town Council did agree to extend this agreement for another 2 years, so that is good until September of 2028. Our second development agreement is Liberty Hill Farms. All of our public site dedication for the park and our easements for our public trail system, all of that has been dedicated to the town. All roads have been improved and obligated. They did come through again for an extension to their development agreement, which was approved by council, and that occurred in November of 23, and that will be for another 5 years. There was one negotiation during that term that where they agreed to pay $35,000 for the Hamlin Plantation portion of the trail of Mount Pleasant Way. Those funds have not been received yet, but that is part of that renegotiated development agreement. And last but not least, we have the Patriots Annex Development Agreement, which, as you heard, the public hearing for that tonight, for the second public hearing. That will be coming to you for an extension. They will be requesting a 5-year extension on that development agreement, and that will be coming to you in the next couple of months. There were no fees. Any fees collected from Patriots Point is payment in lieu of taxes, and that is all based on improvements. Structural improvements, because those aren't done yet on Patriots Annex. There were no funds to be received in 2024. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding.
Let me ask.
Yes, sir.
We don't need a motion or anything to receive this. This is just
No, sir.
information.
Correct.
Okay. So, are there any questions? Yes, sir.
I've just got one question on the payment in lieu of taxes. What is that? What does that compare to the millage rate that typical tax taxpayer pays, if that makes sense. Is that an easy number to answer, or is that something I should?
The land is not taxable. The contents of the building are, so they're taxed at the current tax rate.
Current tax
But we
rate.
have to negotiate that into the contract because all of the property wouldn't be taxable unless we did so.
So there's no land tax on the pilot. This is called a pilot, I believe, right? And there's no tax on the land. What about and I know you just said contents, but what about the building itself?
Yes,
then?
yep.
So
Structure and contents for sure.
structure and
Yes,
contents
absolutely.
and at the 6% rate for commercial buildings.
Yes.
Then. Okay, so it's just the land portion of it, as per the county tax record, or that's not, because that's state. That's not. So that's what tax record do they use for that?
With tax record, it would be the value of their property. I see what you're saying.
Right,
It'd be
because we use the county one.
Yes.
And they're
Yes.
not in. Do we use the county one
Yes.
for that? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Ram.
Just one question that I get a lot that I think would be helpful to include in this report in the future is just how many residential permits essentially are left in each of these
In each one?
developments. Yeah,
Certainly.
because I know I
certainly.
get asked that a lot.
Okay.
How close are we to the build out of Carolina Park? How many
Oh.
more houses are permitted or residents permitted?
Yeah. No,
What were
that's
the
a
answers?
great point. I can tell you right off the bat, Carolina Park, they are going through their clearing and grading for their the 100 attainable housing units. So it was recently approved as a PD amendment. That's all that's left there as far as residential units. Liberty Hill Farms, there's still a couple of phases left there, and then of course Patriots Annex. They're approved under the Waterfront Gateway for a certain number of multifamily residential, and there's not been anything improved there yet.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you. Item B is old business. There are no planning old business items. Section 9, there are no committee action items. Section 10 is council business, new business. Item number 1 is first reading on an ordinance to enact the section. This has to do with accommodations tax advisory.
Move for
committee.
approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Go ahead. Let.
Yes, sir.
discussion
Well,
first.
Mr. Chapman, this does kind of clarify and codify that eligible for-profits can apply for these funds as well, as long as they meet state requirements. And so some of the applicants that the committee has previously disallowed would get a shake at it.
Right. And what this also does is it better complies with the state law dealing with accommodations tax funding. So I want to thank the chairman or the council person who is responsible for accommodations tax liaison for helping get this through, because we had some issues with a agency or a event, if you will, that put a lot of heads in beds, which is the primary reason we have accommodations taxes. So thank you, and thank you to staff for putting this together.
And thank you, Mr. Chapman, for your recommendations and for making sure that event kept going as well.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to understand a little bit more. Currently, the ATAX dollars go to nonprofits engaged in tourist activities, and this is used for their marketing. Is that correct?
That's right.
And this now changes it to allow for-profits to access these dollars.
That's right, but only if they meet the heads and bed requirements. So, for instance, we had a golf tournament that they had let their 501c3 lapse, and while they did drive traffic to our hotels, and they could kind of show that, the committee at the time was they felt hemmed up by the bylaws that said specifically nonprofit. So a for-profit entity can apply, but they still have to meet all the state statute to receive funding from us.
And when you say meet the state statute, the state does not require that it be a nonprofit. That was just a Mount Pleasant rule. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
thank you for doing this and getting us closer to the state statute, by the way. So we appreciate that. Also, just a real quick recommendation that when it comes to budget time, that you might need a little bit more money over at ATAC. The ATAC accommodations tax has increased, but I don't know that the budget for that group has increased in quite a while.
Okay.
So not asking for a lot, I don't think, but we'll get with that crew to see what they need. All right, thank you.
All right. All in favor of the motion to approve, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading ordinance number 24041.
Item number 2.
Move to approve items 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, we have a motion to approve items 2, 3, and 4. One is the opioid settlement funds grant. The other is a COSUP grant, and the other is a donation of a K-9 officer. Do we need any explanation from the police chief on these prior to the vote? Yes, sir.
I would just like to recognize Ms. Shipman and Mr. Dean Stevens for all the work that you guys do with Wake Up Carolina, and we're happy to support that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are you getting a sniffer dog, patrol dog, or a therapy dog? Patrol dog. Malinois or German Shepherd? Malinois. Great. All right. All in favor of the motion to pass items 2, 3, and 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There is no old business. Item 11 is to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.